August 1983. Anchorage, Alaska. A girl bursts out of the woods, barefoot, handcuffed, bleeding. She flags down a trucker, screaming one word: run. She says a man took her to a cabin. Said he'd hunt her. The police rolled their eyes. But 3 months later, they find her body. Then another. Then 17 more. He was their baker. Their neighbor. Their trusted friend. But in the woods, he became something else entirely. What did he do to them out there? And how many are still missing? This is a true story. Subscribe to an unbelievable true story and stay to the end. Because the map he left behind still has X's we can't explain. June 13, 1983. Anchorage, Alaska. 4:42 a.m. The sun never fully sets this time of year in Alaska. But for Cindy Paulson, the darkness never left. She was only 17. A young sex worker trying to survive the streets of Anchorage. Handcuffed. Barefoot. Bleeding. She ran across the icy asphalt of Merrill Field Airport, half naked and hunted. A small plane sat nearby, its door open. A man stood beside it. Calm. Watching. Waiting. He had just tried to kill her. And now he was ready to fly over the trees and dump her body where no one would ever find it. She ran as fast as she could. Blood soaked into her jeans. Her wrists were raw from the handcuffs. A truck driver spotted her and slammed on his brakes. Cindy screamed. "He's going to kill me. Please help me. He has a gun." That driver, a man named Robert Hansen, saved her life. But he didn't know. He'd also just helped uncover one of the most terrifying serial killers in American history. The quiet man on Hansen Drive. Robert Hansen didn't look like a killer. He wore thick glasses, had a soft stutter, worked hard at his bakery. People said he was quiet, polite, dependable, a churchgoer, a family man. He owned a small home in a quiet Anchorage neighborhood. He had 2 kids. His wife, Darla, was a teacher at a local Christian school. People thought they were boring, normal, good. But behind that friendly smile, Robert Hansen had been killing women for over a decade. Little Bob and the Burnt Diary. Robert Christian Hansen was born on February 15, 1939, in Esterville, Iowa. His father was a strict Danish immigrant, cold, distant, and controlling. Bob worked long hours in the family bakery. He stuttered, had severe acne, got bullied in school. Girls laughed at him. Boys mocked him. His own parents rarely hugged him. So Bob started writing in a secret diary. He wrote about revenge. He wrote about punishing women who rejected him. He fantasized about kidnapping, dominating, and killing. He also loved to hunt animals at first. Then, one day, he wrote about a darker game. It would be exciting to make a girl run. Years later, after his arrest, investigators found pages from that diary burned in the basement. From petty crime to predator. By his early 20s, Robert Hansen had already committed arson. He burned down a school bus garage in Iowa in 1960. He was caught and sentenced to 3 years in prison, but only served 20 months. Then, he moved to Alaska. It was 1967. Anchorage was booming, oil, construction, and fast money everywhere. And no one knew who Bob Hansen really was. He opened his own bakery. He married a quiet school teacher. He went to church every Sunday. But at night, he stalked the streets. And the killing had already begun. The girls who disappeared in the 1970s and early 80s, dozens of young women vanished in Anchorage. Most were sex workers or dancers. Many were runaways. Some were never reported missing. Police chalked it up to drugs or lifestyle. Few bothered to connect the dots. Some of the women's names: Sherry Morrow, Joanna Messina, Eklutna Annie, never identified Paula Goulding. All of them had one thing in common: they were taken into the wilderness and never seen alive again. Years later, bones would be found scattered across the Alaskan woods. But by then, Robert Hansen had already added more victims. The deadliest game. Robert Hansen had a superpower most killers didn't. He owned a small Piper Super Cub airplane. And he was a skilled pilot. He used the plane to fly women deep into the Alaskan bush, hundreds of miles from the city. There were no roads, no witnesses, no way to run back. He would land on a sandbar or a clearing in the trees, let the woman out, pretend it was just a picnic. Then he'd reach for his rifle. And the hunt began. He gave them a head start, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. He liked it that way. And when he was ready, he chased them down through the trees. Like animals, one officer later said. He hunted them like animals. The one who got away, Cindy Paulson, changed everything. The night she was taken, Robert Hansen told her the same lie he told others. He just wanted some company. He'd pay well. But once inside his house, the mask dropped. He chained her to a post in the basement. Assaulted her. Told her she'd be more fun to play with in the wild. But he made a mistake. Before taking her to his plane, he left her alone in the back seat of his car, with the door unlocked. She bolted, ran across Merrill Field, and found help. Police believed her. Sort of. The ice cracks. Cindy described Hansen's face, his home, his trophies on the wall. She even led them right to the spot where he'd parked the plane. But Hansen had an alibi. A friend vouched for him. And the police had no physical evidence. They let him go. But one detective, Glenn Floth, stayed suspicious. He started digging into old missing persons reports. He matched Cindy's story with similar cases. Women, dancers, sex workers, all taken, all vanished. Then, a body was found. The first body in the snow, September 1982. Hunters discovered a shallow grave in a remote area called Eklutna. The body was a young woman. Hands-bound. No ID. She was labeled Eklutna Annie. Months later, more bodies surfaced. Sherry Morrow, found with a single bullet wound to the back. Joanna Messina, found in a gravel pit. All of them had one thing in common: .223 caliber bullets, the same type used by Hansen's hunting rifle. Detective Floth had enough to go on. He contacted the FBI. The profile of a predator. FBI profiler John Douglas, the same man who helped catch the Unabomber and predicted the behavior of serial killers, reviewed the case. His profile was chillingly accurate. The man you're looking for is quiet, married, religious, works a steady job, loves hunting, has low self-esteem, probably has a stutter, collects trophies. Floth almost dropped the file. It described Robert Hansen exactly. Now, they just had to prove it. October 27, 1983. After months of surveillance, Detective Glenn Floth and the Anchorage police finally had what they needed. A search warrant for Robert Hansen's house, car, and airplane. When they knocked on his door, Robert answered calmly. He smiled, invited them in. But inside, they found hell frozen in time. They searched the basement. The same basement Cindy Paulson had described. The chains. The wooden post. The carpet with dark stains. Then, they opened the attic. Inside a corner of the crawl space, wrapped in a sheet, was a hidden cache. A .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle. Jewelry and ID cards from multiple missing women. A map, folded and worn, with tiny X marks scattered across remote Alaskan wilderness. Each X was a grave. Some police officers wept. The map of the dead. They counted the red marks. 24. Each one marked a location where Hansen claimed to have gone hunting. Over the next year, police and FBI teams flew by helicopter into freezing forests, swamps, and sandbars. They used the map. And one by one, they dug up the truth. Human bones. Torn clothing. Bullet casings. Fragments of lives that had been erased. But forensics told a chilling pattern. Every body had been shot in the back, execution style. No struggle. No fight. The game had always been rigged. A letter to no one. Among the items recovered from Hansen's home was a charred notebook. Police reconstructed parts of it in a lab. It was a diary, He had written about his special place. A hunting ground only he knew. A place where no one could hear screams. He wrote, "The animals are easy. The girls are harder. But the thrill is better." Some pages were full of rants. Others, apologies, to no one. One passage read, "I didn't want to be this. I asked God to stop me. But he didn't." The confession with all the evidence piled high, police had one final move. Sit him down. Face to face. One last chance to explain. Detective Flo slid the map across the table. He pointed at the X's. He said nothing. And finally, Robert Hansen broke. Over 12 hours, he told them everything. He admitted to 17 murders. Said he stopped counting after 20. Described in detail how he flew the girls out, gave them a chance to run, and shot them from behind. But he insisted. They weren't good girls. They didn't matter. The officer sat in stunned silence. It wasn't just evil. It was cold logic. The trial the world missed February 18, 1984. Hansen pleaded guilty to 4 murders, the only ones with physical evidence, and confessed to many more. To avoid the death penalty, he agreed to mark the rest of the X's and walk police through each location. There were no cameras. No national frenzy. No Netflix special. Just one courtroom. One monster. And a judge who gave him 461 years plus life, without parole. When asked if he had anything to say, Hansen simply said, "No. This is a real story. Every fact you hear is public. You can check it yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to an unbelievable true story. Because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home." What they found in the snow, some remains were never identified. The snow had hidden too much. Bears. Wolves. Eyes. But forensic teams did their best. They matched bullets. Jewelry. Bones. Some families got closure. Others never did. One mother flew from Texas to Alaska to visit the spot where her daughter's body was found. All she said was, "At least now, I know where she is." She left a pink ribbon on the tree. The freezer trophies inside Hansen's garage freezer, police found something else. A Ziploc bag full of gold necklaces, rings, and trinkets. Each one belonged to a victim. He kept them. Like trophies. For years, he'd open the freezer. And remember. That's how he relived it all. Through cold metal. Frozen silence. What would you do? What if Cindy Paulson never escaped? What if the trucker never stopped? How many more women would have vanished? And how many others like Robert Hansen are out there right now, smiling at their neighbors, baking pies, going to church? While planning something horrible? Would you see the signs? Would you believe someone like Cindy? Hansen died in 2014 in a hospital prison bed. No ceremony. No obituary. Just another name erased by time. But the people of Anchorage still remember. Some say when the snow falls just right in the forest, you can hear footsteps that stop too soon. Others say the bones of those girls still whisper in the trees. This is not fiction. This is not a movie. Not a script. Not a legend. It happened. To real women. In a real town. By men everyone thought was normal. And maybe the worst part? No one noticed. Robert Hansen's house still stands in Anchorage. The basement where he chained Cindy. The freezer where he kept trophies. The attic where he hid a killer's map. People drive by it. Some don't even know. But if you stop, look long enough, you'll feel something cold creep over you. A silence that screams. And a truth too horrifying to forget. Have you heard this story before? What do you think truly happened in those woods? If you're drawn to real stories that stay with you, subscribe now to an unbelievable true story. Because every week, we reveal the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. The girl who brought down a killer, Cindy Paulson, was 17. Just a teenager. She'd been through more trauma than most people face in a lifetime. And yet, she didn't give up. She ran for her life in handcuffs. She screamed on a street where no one wanted to help. And she told her story over and over, until someone finally listened. Because of Cindy, Robert Hansen was caught. Because of her, others were saved. But the world barely remembers her name. No awards. No news specials. No book deals. Just a girl who refused to be erased. The missing faces. Her name was Joanna Messina. She vanished in 1980. They found her skull near a gravel pit. She loved dogs. Her name was Sherry Morrow. Disappeared in 1981. They found her with 3 bullet holes in her back. She wanted to be a dancer. Her name was Sue Luna. 17 years old. Last seen alive in 1982. Hansen made her run through the snow in just her underwear before he killed her. There were many more. Their names faded. But in some families, a light stays on, just in case they come home. Anchorage wasn't safe anymore by 1980. Anchorage had become a boom town. The pipeline brought men, money, and madness. Bars overflowed. Crime soared. And missing girls barely made the news. The people in power didn't want to admit it. Bad press hurt tourism. Hurt business. Hurt the illusion that Alaska was wild, but not dangerous. But after Hansen, they couldn't look away. One detective said, "We thought we lived in a small town. But it turned out, monsters don't care where you live." FBI profilers studied Hansen's case for years. He was everything you'd never suspect. Soft-spoken. Married. A father. Church-going. Owned a bakery. But beneath the mask was deep rage. He had a stutter. Was bullied in school. Couldn't talk to girls. Felt invisible. Some say that anger built until he exploded. But others say, lots of people suffer. They don't become killers. So what made him snap? The FBI called it power fantasy behavior, where murder became his only way of feeling important. The cabin in the Ice One location from Hansen's map stood out. Deep in the wilderness. No road access. Only reachable by plane. It was his personal cabin. He built it himself. Stocked it with weapons, ropes, and fuel. Used it as his final hunt location. Investigators found bones near the trees. Rope burns on a pine trunk. And old bullet holes in the frozen bark. The snow muffled everything. No one would have heard the screams. The ones they missed even with Hansen's confession. Not all the exes were found. Some girls were never identified. Some names were never written down. Transient women. Runaways. Those with no family, no paperwork, no history. One detective said, "We believe there may be 30 or more victims. But we may never know." That's what evil sometimes does. It erases. Quietly. Completely. Forever. Would you believe her? Cindy wasn't the first girl to escape. Years earlier, a different woman had reported a man trying to tie her up. She gave a description. She said he had a stutter. Owned a plane. Drove a pickup. She was ignored. Why? Because she was a sex worker. Because the man she described had no record. Because he baked bread. She wasn't credible. And the predator went free. The quiet return after his conviction, Robert Hansen was transferred to Spring Creek Correctional Center, Alaska's highest security prison. He rarely spoke. Kept to himself. Read the Bible. Baked bread for fellow inmates. He never apologized. Never showed remorse. He lived in prison for 30 years. While families of the victims never found peace. When he died at age 75, no one came for the body. He was buried in an unmarked grave. No flowers. No name. Just dirt. Why wasn't this a movie? There are documentaries about Bundy. Films about Dahmer. Series on Gacy. But Robert Hansen? Barely a blip. Why? Maybe because the women he killed weren't famous. Maybe because the victims were from the streets. Or maybe because the truth was just too uncomfortable. Sometimes, the worst monsters are the ones you never see coming. How he almost got away without Cindy Paulson. Robert Hansen would have gotten away. For 13 years, he outsmarted police. He lived 2 lives. He fooled friends, neighbors, even his wife. and he nearly slipped through the cracks, again. If one officer hadn't listened. If that trucker hadn't stopped. If the search warrant hadn't gone through. We'd never know how many more lives he would have taken. The scariest part? There are probably more like him. Right now. Living quiet lives. Smiling politely. Waiting for darkness. Let's pause for a moment. Every detail you've heard, every name, every place, every horror, is true. You can look it up. You can read the files. You can see the interviews. This is a real story. Every fact you hear is public. You can check it yourself. If real-life mysteries leave you breathless, subscribe now to an unbelievable true story. Because the next truth we uncover might hit even closer to home. Detective Glenn Flood. That was his name. He was one of the few who looked past Cindy's job title and saw her pain. He believed her, fought for her, and kept digging, even when others said to let it go. He matched Hanssen's plane records, matched the handcuff marks, matched the exact shell casings from other sites. Cindy didn't just survive. She helped stop a serial killer. The burn barrel near Hanssen's house, they found something strange. A metal burn barrel behind the bakery. Inside it, ashes and bone fragments. He had tried to destroy the evidence. Burned clothing. Burned IDs. Burned trophies. But even fire leaves a trace. One officer said. It was like he wanted to erase them completely. As if they never existed. But he couldn't erase everything. Souvenirs of the dead inside his house. They found a box. It looked like an old recipe container. But inside, dozens of personal items. Earrings. Bracelets. Hair clips. Driver's licenses. Notes scribbled in lipstick. Trophies. He kept something from every victim. Why? Because it helped him relive it. Like a hunter showing off his kill. It was sick. Twisted. But it was what finally connected him to many of the girls. Every red X had a name. Detectives laid out Hanssen's map. Every red X marked a death. They flew out to the forests. To the swamps. To the isolated hunting spots. Some had bones. Some had just a boot. Some. Nothing at all. But they kept digging. Because every X was a person. Letters never opened. One mother wrote to her daughter every month. She didn't know her child was already gone. She sent letters from California to Alaska. Stamped. Sealed. Never opened. Her daughter was buried miles away in frozen dirt. No marker. No name. But the letters kept coming. For 8 years. That's what evil steals. Not just life. But closure. One of the Red X locations, there was a strange pattern. A trail in the brush. Not made by animals. But by something, or someone, moving back and forth. They followed it. Found bones. A rusted chain. And a woman's shoe. It looked like he had kept someone there. For days. Feeding them. Walking them. Then killing them. The cabin wasn't just a place to dump bodies. It was his playground. The marriage no one understood. Hansen was married. His wife stood by him. Until the truth came out. They had 2 children. He made breakfast for them every day. Volunteered at church. Taught Sunday school. When she finally left, she never spoke publicly again. No interviews. No books. No spotlight. Just silence. And who could blame her? What would you do if you woke up one day and realized you'd been living with a monster? What would you have seen? The bakery customers never saw it. The neighbors never noticed. The police missed it, for years. So here's the question. Would you have seen the signs? If he lived next door, would anything seem strange? A shy voice. A stutter. A small plane parked behind the house. A quiet man who always smiled. What if monsters don't look like monsters? What if they look normal? A killer's mind map. One profiler created a full psychological profile of Hansen. Here's what it showed. Narcissism, he saw himself as smarter than police. Revenge fantasy, he blamed women for his failures. Predatory patience, he waited years to perfect his method. Disassociation, He treated victims like objects, not humans. He didn't see pain. He saw targets. One victim. One hunt. One trophy. Repeat. The Alaskan ground keeps secrets. In winter, the soil freezes like stone. But when it thaws, it gives back what it took. Spring came. So did a team of dogs and archaeologists. And what they uncovered in just 1 week. 3 separate shallow graves. A human femur wrapped in torn fabric. A rusted .223 shell casing near a woman's skull. All confirmed, his victims weren't just guesses. They were real. They were waiting. Even in death. They were still buried by silence. In 1971, he was caught attempting to kidnap a woman. He was convicted, but served less than a year. In 1977, he was accused again. Charges dropped due to lack of evidence. Each time, he walked free. Each time, he escalated. Each time, another girl disappeared. The system failed them in interviews. Police admitted something rare. They failed. They didn't listen to Cindy fast enough. They dismissed missing women as not credible. They let Hansen's soft-spoken reputation fool them. He had no criminal record. He ran a bakery. He was too normal. And that's exactly why he got away with it. One phone call could have changed everything. One of the girls, Lisa, told a friend, "I'm going to meet a guy with a plane. If I don't come back, tell someone." The friend didn't. Not because she didn't care, but because she didn't think it would matter. Now she lives with that sentence every day. If I had just made one call. The Red String Room. At one point, detectives used a storage unit. They turned it into what they called the Red String Room. Every girl. Every address. Every map point. Connected by red yarn. The threads tangled. Overlapped. Looped around places Hansen had worked, visited, or flown over. The pattern was there. But they didn't see it until it was too late. How many others like him? Robert Hansen wasn't a monster hiding in the woods. He was a father. A small business owner. A neighbor. A trusted customer. He baked birthday cakes. Chatted with police. Went to church. So the real question is, how many others like him are out there, smiling, unnoticed, right now? This is not fiction. Again. Let us remind you again. This is not fiction. Every word is from police records, court transcripts, or real interviews. The map? Exists. The red X's? Exist. The bracelet? Still in a box. This happened. In our lifetime. To real girls. In a town that thought it was safe. In 1980, 2 moose hunters found a frozen body. The girl was barefoot. Hands bound. Eyes still open. She had fought hard. Her nails were chipped. Her wrists bruised. But no one knew her name. Years later, she would be identified as Sherry Morrow, a 23-year-old dancer who just wanted to go home. For years, she was only known as Body Number 3. The cabin is still there in the Alaskan woods. There is a spot with no trails. No signs. No sound, except the wind. Robert Hansen's cabin once stood there. Some say it was torn down. Others say the remains still stand. Locals avoid it. Hunters pass it in silence. One trooper returned decades later. He stood in a clearing. "You can feel it," he said. "Like the trees are holding their breath." The camera he kept inside Hansen's home. Police found hundreds of photographs. Some showed women smiling at his plane. Others screaming, eyes wide, before the film cut off. He kept them in boxes. Labeled. Filed. Archived. Like trophies. Like a twisted scrapbook. Detectives still haven't released most of them. Why? Because some of those girls have never been found. She was just ice. One search team found a body under 4 feet of snow. Frozen. Stiff. Her earrings still in. The officer who uncovered her whispered, "She doesn't even look human anymore. She looks like ice." They covered her gently. Zipped the bag. And carried her out like a sister. She wasn't a Jane Doe to them. She was someone's child. The victims speak last. Let's remember their names. Cindy Paulson, the girl who escaped. Sherry Morrow. Paula Goulding. Angela Fettern. Joanna Messina. Lisa Futrell. Molly Larson. Sue Luna. Tamara Peterson. Andrea Fish-Altieri. And the unnamed. Jane Doe number 1. Jane Doe number 2. Jane Doe number 3. And more. They were not statistics. Not just runaways or dancers. They were daughters, sisters, friends, humans. Why we tell these stories? Because someone needs to say their names. Because silence is what he wanted. And we won't give it to him. We tell these stories because they are real. Because someone, somewhere, still remembers a laugh, a voice, a goodbye that never came back. What do you think happened? In those woods? Picture it. A girl running barefoot, snow underfoot, tree branches scratching her arms, breath steaming in the cold. Behind her, footsteps, a hunter with a rifle, watching, waiting. Now ask yourself, could she have been saved? Would you have believed her? Do you know someone just like her? This is not fiction. Every detail in this film is part of a real case. You can read the files, see the reports, and follow the trail. If you've made it this far, you know one thing. Real horror doesn't wear a mask. It wears an apron, smiles at neighbors, bakes birthday cakes. So here's our question to you. Have you heard this story before? What do you think truly happened in those final moments? Do you believe all the victims were found? If you're drawn to real stories that stay with you, subscribe now to an unbelievable true story. Because every week, we reveal the darkest truths hidden in plain sight. Watch the next video on your screen, or dive into our playlist of real-life crimes and mysteries. The next story might be even more shocking.